Listen to him dodge Carolla. Masterclass in debate. Watch.
Half of African Americans in the state of California, roughly half of Latino families, have no access to a checking account or an ATM. Things we take for granted. They don't have a checking account.
What's wrong with them?
And well, because they don't have the resources to sock those things away.
Well, why do we have them?
A lot of different reasons, but roughly half those families don't. Where do they
why
end
do
up?
Armenians have them?
But where they end up is in check cashing places.
But I want to know why those groups, why those two groups don't have access.
Well, a lot of just happens to be that. We can talk about
flawed?
This. No, they're hardly flawed, but they're struggling.
Genetically
Folks are making their word. Hardly, not absolutely.
But okay, do Asians have this problem?
I mean, a lot of communities have. A lot of whites have these problems.
Oh, but that's not just black and Hispanic.
No, but
why did you bring up black and Hispanic?
Because the magnitude is ominous.
But why so many of them?
It just happens to be the magnitude.
That's the way God planned it?
Not at all.
Well, what happened to them?
There are a lot of issues, and that the communities are struggling. A lot of new immigrants. Struggling? A lot of different reasons. Lack of opportunity.
Have been here. Blacks have been here longer than we've been here.
Well, we can surmise.
What about Asians? They were put in internment camps.
Yeah, it all initiated at San Francisco, and the Chinese Exclusion Act came out.
So are they the check cash? Are they the check cash?
A lot of Asians certainly do.
Oh, so why don't you conclude them?
The only reason why is the magnitude.
There's so many more.
The magnitude in percentage.
But there's no way to figure out how that happened.
We could talk about it. You know what I'm dealing with? I don't want to have a sociological debate.
Sure, why would you?
No, here's why.
Why would you want to do that? Because the person from the Times wouldn't write good things about you if you did that.
No, that's not the case, because I want to deal with reality. No.
You want to deal with reality.
I want to deal with the reality of people that are struggling, people are suffering. I want to deal with the problems in a pragmatic way. Why are they
struggling and suffering?
I don't want an idea. We can hold hands and surmise about all these underlying reasons.
I don't want to do that. I want to know why they're struggling. Why are they struggling?
A lot of folks are struggling because they can't find jobs.
Why blacks and
because they're working.
Why blacks and Hispanics?
Across the board, all socioeconomic.
Okay, so everybody's
struggling.
So Asians are suffering just as much as blacks.
The face of welfare is not an African American family.
So it's Asian, Jewish, it's all of them.
Caucasian. It's a lot of
so
folks
we're all
in society. A lot of folks are struggling.
Okay. Yeah, I do love that part where it's like, blacks and Hispanics are really struggling here in California. Okay, so why blacks and Hispanics? Are white people not struggling? No, white people are struggling. So are Jews not struggling? Well, Jews do struggle. Okay, what about Asians? Asians struggle? Yeah, they do. So then everybody struggles. Well, some people struggle more than others. Now everybody knows that crime isn't a new thing. It happens in every major city, even in the small cities, from petty theft to larger white-collar cabals. But the thing about crime is that there are certain instances and certain acts that we don't really know about. In fact, even the way our government behaves sometimes can even seem criminal. My guest today, Matthew Cox, is a really interesting individual. The thing is he is a former criminal turned advocate for justice. Well, that sounds a little bit strange, but not really when you actually find out his story. Now, prior to getting caught, we'll talk about what for, he had spent 3 years on the Secret Service's most wanted list, which in my opinion makes him sound pretty cool as we're getting through this. He subsequently served 13 years in prison for title theft and mortgage fraud, which is one of these crimes that people often don't think about or even know about. Now, he has dedicated his life to consumer protection and raises awareness by educating individuals on how to safeguard themselves against these crimes. This is going to be a story of both criminal intrigue, a little bit of justice of an individual, and then turning that around for the greater good. I love a good comeback story. Anyway, Matthew Cox, welcome to VNN for the first time.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Okay, so introducing you on what's going on. You've had an incredible journey yourself from being on the Secret Service's most wanted list to now advocating for consumer protection. Can you briefly just share with me right now what brought you into the world of title theft and a little bit of your backstory on how you became a criminal and how you got caught?
Well, I was a mortgage broker, so I had a certain set of skills that allowed me to figure out how to take advantage of the public record system and all the flaws. When I was doing it, not a lot of people were doing this, but since I got caught, went to prison, tons of people are now doing this crime. It's become very, very mainstream. What happened in my case was I figured out how to file a simple document on someone's house and then transfer their title of their home into another person's name, either a synthetic identity or a stolen identity, and then borrow money against that property or just sell the property outright. And then I would, of course, collect that money, move the money or pull the money out of the bank, and then I would take off and the homeowner would be left to figure out what had happened.
Right. So, what's kind of weird about this is before I had heard about mortgage theft, I thought once you buy a home, your mortgage would be safe. But what I'm finding out is kind of like we found out in 2008. Your mortgage is not safe, right? I mean, your house could collapse, your bank could disappear. But, while we're talking about that, it's crazy because, banks frauded a lot of people and barely anyone. Nobody went to jail. But I love how the FBI coined this term house stealing for types of crimes like this. It's an interesting perspective. Can you explain what house stealing is and why it's actually become such a growth epidemic, considering the fact that myself and many others, especially that are new homeowners or, maybe weren't educated by our parents, never even knew this was possible.
Right. Yeah. There's no, the FBI uses that term, but the actual term is it's bank fraud or just, fraud in general. A lot of people say title fraud. And something that people don't know about. Everybody knows about credit card fraud because it's easy to understand, but people think that they're safe after they buy their house. They think that their title insurance covers them, but your title insurance only covers you up until the day you close your home. Let's say you buy your house and 2 days later, I file a deed on your home. I can transfer the deed from your home in your name to another individual's name. In many cases, I wouldn't even do that. I would simply just satisfy the loan that's on your house. I would steal your identity and then I would borrow 4 or 5 mortgages on that house in your name. And of course, I get that money. I transfer it into banks. I then move the money. Then you don't even figure it out until 4 months later or 3 months later when the banks are foreclosing on you.
Right. So so this is kind of interesting. I mean, it sounds scary, right? Because the problem is it's like a crime done in secret. It's almost like your car got stolen, but you were on vacation and then you get back and it's not there. And you're like, well, how do I get back from the airport? What do I do? And I feel like the mechanics of the scam, though, from your experience, can you walk us through a typical title theft scam? I know you're talking a little bit about how it works or how they do it, but how does it play out? Let's say I just own a home, right? I think my home is safe. And somebody's smart. They're a criminal. They know what they're doing. I know it's a very effective theft process that actually seems to actually be a real problem. I'm not going to lie. I was shocked because I go, there's no way this is happening. I go, there's no way. There's no way this is happening. I look up how many people are actually getting this done to them, and I was blown away. Matthew, I was honestly shocked. So can you walk me through that? How does it work, and why is it such an effective scam that actually ends up, destroying people's lives and jeopardizing their investments?
So I'll give you an example. When I used to do it, here's the really scary part about what you're saying, is that when I used to do this, I physically had to go down to public records and pull someone's title, like the title to your house. I had to then go back and make a new title. I would then go back and record it at public records. I then had to schedule a closing to borrow money against the house. Maybe I had to go into a bank. I had to go into a closing. It was very hands-on. Now I can sit in a Starbucks. I can look up the deed to your house online. I can create a fabricated deed to your home, transfer it into someone else's name. Even if you have a mortgage on it, I can satisfy the mortgage on your house in the bank's name. Now I own the house. I can then online apply for mortgages on your home, schedule those mortgages at a title company that does virtual closings. And then I don't even have to go to the title company. I can actually just do it online. Sitting in a Starbucks, I can close that loan online. Get the title company to transfer the money to a bank that I own, to a bank account that I'm in charge of, and then move that money. Now, what happens is you as a homeowner have no idea this is happening. You still think that your house is covered and you're safe. You might think that your homeowner's insurance protects you, something along those lines, which is ridiculous. But people believe it. And one day you get a foreclosure notice in your mail. And suddenly there's a lawyer telling you he's foreclosing on behalf of, Wells Fargo Bank or Bank of America or whoever I've borrowed that money from. You go to the police. If they want to help you at all, they're certainly not going to find me. And now they say, okay, well, we'll look for this guy. But what happens to you? Bank of America is foreclosing on your house. So you have to go out and hire an attorney to try and stop this process and explain to them that you had nothing to do with this. Police are not going to help you. You have to pay for the attorney. That could be $10,000. It could be $50,000. It depends on what the attorney charges. He's now got to file all of this paperwork to try and stop this process from happening. Well, if your property, the problem is it's complete chaos, right? Like, you're not prepared for this. You're a podcast host, right? Like, what if you're a guy that works at, Walmart, or you work as an insurance adjuster? You're not prepared to stop this process. It costs tens of thousands of dollars, and that's on the low end. So the best way to protect yourself is to have some type of a monitoring service like Home Title Lock, where they'll notify you as soon as there's a transfer, and you're able to stop the process. And what they'll also do is they'll come and they'll correct any damage that's done to your title. They'll work with you with the police. They will hire an attorney on your behalf. They will fix whatever damage has occurred to your title in order to make you whole again.
Right. And okay, that's what I was kind of excited about, though, when I realized there was a solution, because honestly, like, I had seen so many people affected in 2008 by, bank fraud, by mortgage fraud. And I had found out, I actually spoke around, I found out this had actually happened to someone that I knew. And I was like, okay, well, I didn't realize, people don't want to talk about this stuff, because this is one of those things where it's kind of embarrassing, right? I mean, and I know it shouldn't be, because it's not any of the fault of the homeowner. But if you're watching this and you don't then protect yourself, then you kind of are at fault. I'm not being completely honest, because it's like, if you're not taking the protection, you don't buy insurance after your house gets blown away in Hurricane Milton, right? I'm in Florida. You got to have the insurance beforehand. That's sort of like protecting yourself. And so I have a real question for you here. When it comes to the vulnerabilities in banks, like processing these fraudulent documents and sort of conducting this stuff, like, what are the vulnerabilities in our systems that actually allow this to happen? And how does Home Title Lock sort of protect the homeowner, or bring in that level of security where I don't have to worry about this anymore?
Well, they monitor your title 24/7, right? So
okay.
If there's any type of change at all, let's say I file let's say I'm going to borrow 3 mortgages on your house in your name. First of all, almost everybody has a mortgage on their house. So if you own a $500,000 house, you probably have a mortgage on it for $400,000 or something. And as soon as I go and file the satisfaction of mortgage, Home Title Lock is going to notify you and say, hey, did you just pay off your mortgage? You're going to say no. And that gives you the ability to contact law enforcement immediately before I'm able to borrow against that property. Let's say I actually am able to borrow that mortgage and get that money somehow, even though you have this protection. Home Title Lock will hire an attorney to fix that. Here's the other thing. There's no protection from the government. Now, take your credit card, for example. If you've got a $10,000 credit card, let's say somehow or another I clone your credit card, or I get a counterfeit credit card in your name, and I go and I run up your credit card for $9,000 or $10,000. You can simply call the bank and say, "Hey, that wasn't me," and the bank will transfer that money back onto your card. They'll reverse the charges. Maybe they might charge you $50. I think legally that's what they're allowed to do. This is a law that the federal government passed to protect you. They've passed nothing to fix the problem of title theft. Nothing. They're not concerned for you at all. They're not looking out for you. It costs them nothing. So why would they look out for you? It costs the title company nothing. Title companies make money selling title insurance. So they're simply everybody's doing what they do, including the criminal. And you have to be diligent about this. You have to look out for yourself, because nobody's looking out for you.
Right. And I think what's kind of cool, though, is I was sort of taken back by the point that how serious this is, because, like, quite frankly, I mean, I'm not trying to incriminate you, but you incriminated yourself. You did this, right? This is like you understood what was going on and how this stuff could happen. And so you're coming from the criminal's perspective. And I take that, honestly, with a massive amount of respect. As a father, I've done a lot of things I regret. And so I'm going to tell my sons, from experience, I'm not going to say don't do this so you don't have fun, don't do this, whatever reason. I'm doing this because I know that it's hurtful and it's harmful and it's a real danger. And I feel like a lot of times we get ignorant as we grow older, and we're like, well, I'm old enough to afford a house. What could really happen? And unfortunately, that's what everyone thinks until something actually does happen. So I wanted to ask you, from your transformation, from the time that you served 13 years in prison for title and mortgage fraud, now you're using that story to educate others. What message do you hope to share with homeowners to prevent them from falling prey to these scams? And, for people that are just watching, they're like, nah, I'm going to just skip out, not going to protect myself. Can you tell me as well, like, how the services at Home Title Lock were designed with them in mind to really make sure that people are protected, because people offer services and, some of them aren't really helpful and some of them really don't do much. But I'm convinced that this one is not that case. This is actually something everybody should have. So I'd love to kind of understand why you made this company, what you learned, and why other people should also learn from the lessons that you learned the hard way.
It's funny. It's like $1 a day. Like, I mean, the cost that they charge is ridiculous. And the idea that someone would think that they're not vulnerable. I mean, everybody's vulnerable. I can drive. Listen, I could take the house that you're living in right now and borrow against it. Within a few weeks, I could have that scam completely set up. And you would have no recourse because you're not protected. You wouldn't even know it had happened. So it's silly. The people that fell victim to me, to my crime, do you know what they did? Do you know what they did to bring this on themselves? Nothing.
Wow.
They went about their lives like any other person. They didn't do anything that made them more susceptible. Nothing. We're talking about doctors. We're talking about CPAs. We're talking about just the average person, retirees, just people that are just living their life. They'd made all the right decisions in life. They'd done everything correctly, and they just made the mistake of crossing my path and absolutely devastated them financially. Well, they would have to go out and hire attorneys. They would, I don't want to say financially, I don't know how much money they had, but I know they spent tens of thousands of dollars. I know they had to hire attorneys. I know they had to fix this problem. And I know they'd done nothing to bring it on themselves. So, of course, going to prison and going through the process and never, as a criminal, you don't feel bad about that. As a criminal, I can tell you, I never once thought about it. I very easily justified my crimes. And it wasn't until I got caught and went through the process of seeing what the victims had to go through that I decided, I just can't behave this way anymore. And this is just ridiculous. I'm going to keep ending up in prison. I'm not helping anybody. I can't spend the rest of my life in prison because I like, fast cars and, nice houses. Like, this is ridiculous. So as a result, I got out of prison and I contacted Home Title Lock and I said, listen, we need to work something out. We need to figure this out. I know I can help benefit your clients.
Yeah, and I feel like that's actually remarkably a nice ending to a beautiful story, but unfortunately a story that'll never end, right? Because the criminals will never stop being born. They'll never stop being people that are trying to take advantage of people. And unfortunately, if you don't learn from history, you repeat it. So, to kind of conclude this, not only do I appreciate what you're doing for homeowners, not only do I appreciate what you're doing, and showing people that making bad decisions in life doesn't have to mean you have to have a bad life, And right now, if you're not, protecting your house, you are making a bad decision, and you might be putting your family, yourself, your future generations in jeopardy. So, looking ahead with technology advancing and public records becoming more accessible online, do you see the title theft evolving in the future, and what steps can be taken to safeguard against it?
Oh, listen, it's only getting worse. It's only getting worse. As a matter of fact, some of these with AI, people are going to closings now and they're actually imaging themselves as the actual homeowner. So they're able to send a title person or the closers, which are notaries, right? Send them the driver's license of the homeowner and then actually clone themselves through AI to look exactly like the homeowner so that they can pass as a homeowner to borrow money against the properties. Can you imagine? You're sitting there trying to explain to the police and to the title company and the lender that wasn't you. How ridiculous would you sound?
Right.
It's getting worse and worse and worse every day. There's monitoring is the only way to stop this. To keep yourself from being a victim, really.
Matthew, I really appreciate, you coming on. I want to remind people, we're not just talking about an idea here. We're talking about a real problem and a vulnerability. And, you guys got to understand that Home Title Lock has triple lock protection, which is like they have 24/7 monitoring, urgent alerts, and title restoration if fraud occurs. So you're protected in advance 24/7. You're alerted in the moment, so you're never caught off guard. And if and when there's a larger problem, which they're very good at preventing these things, if technology really does advance, someone does something secretly, they have this fraud protection. So you're not going to be out of your house. You're not going to be, kicked to the road. And this is why, here at Vigilant News, we are trying to make sure that you guys are not only getting information, but you're getting products and things that benefit your life and protect your families. We're very pro-family here. And right now, when you go to HometitleLock.com/VNN, right now, use promo code VNN, you can get 30 days of free protection. So essentially, I always tell you, we're never going to offer you something that doesn't believe in itself. I would never talk to anyone. I would never give you a product or a service that they don't think that they're legit. And so when someone says, look, we can give you a full month of free protection and you're going to want to keep this on your house. You're going to love, like they used to say, right, at Men's Warehouse, you're going to love the way you look. I guarantee it. But you're going to love the freedom of your mind. Now that you know this can happen, don't have to worry about it any longer. It's like living in a world where you never knew this could happen and it never can. Don't wait. Secure your home and your peace of mind today. Check out the link on the screen, HometitleLock.com/VNN. That's HometitleLock.com/VNN. You can click it if you're watching on X. It'll probably be linked down below on the thread. If you're watching on Rumble, it'll be in the description. But either way, you got to reach out to them. You got to figure out what you can do to secure your investments and secure your life. Anyway, Matthew Cox, I really appreciate you coming on. If you have one word of encouraging for people to go out and to check out and to sign up for that 30-day, what would you tell them if they're iffy or they don't think they need it? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, be vigilant. Don't be a victim. Be vigilant. Don't make the mistake of thinking it's not going to happen to you.
Amen. I agree with that. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
We really appreciate it. And guys, to all of you who watch faithfully here at Vigilant News, my name is Elijah Schaefer. You may have just met me today, maybe your first time, but I want to remind you that we do have videos like this that come out every day throughout the day on X and Rumble. You can follow us at Vigilant News. My guest today, links to the ways that you can follow him, that you can find his work, that you can support him will also be included as well. We always encourage you to connect with great people. And if that sounds like a product that's interesting for you, then please check it out. Even if you're not a homeowner and so it's not interesting to you, send the link to your friends and family. You worry about your family members, your mom, your dad. I mean, they're getting senile. Things are it's hard to even manage your own family. And you're like, are my parents protected? Well, make sure you send the link to them as well and say, hey, check this out, because you might want to protect yourself rather than losing the inheritance or the family investment. You're not going to want to be a victim. Be vigilant, as he said. Anyway, have a great rest of the week. As always, and may God bless the United States of America. I'm signing out.